open the floor to public comment. Our first person is Rebecca, and you have 3 minutes to address the commission. So Rebecca, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I actually just sent some supporting materials to Rhoda and also to David Tim. It looks like David is not with you all tonight.
David is here, yes.
Oh, okay. If you would consider sharing those materials with the rest of the committee, I'd appreciate it. Thank you for having me back and being willing to hear continual concerns about Crystal House. When I came in July, that was sort of the start of an odyssey to learn what county resources were out there to help us as residents see what help we could get to improve deteriorating conditions across the board at Crystal House. And the good news is that when we have been able to get county code enforcement involved, there have been some great results. One thing that I've shared in my testimony materials are before and after photos of a crumbling door frame. Once Inspector Clark showed up and asked them to fix the door, they fixed the door. It is amazing. We're grateful for the support of code enforcement. It's hard to get residents, especially in a building with so many immigrants, to reach out to code enforcement when it's appropriate. Many of them will do things like post negative reviews on Google instead, or post on an in-house app in order to try to get results. But really reaching out to the county can be a big help. But I also want to see, though, if there's more that we can do and do some more brainstorming and have some conversations, because we continue to have a lot of issues, especially with getting leases through, with building maintenance and upkeep, and with safety and security. And my friend and neighbor Alexis is also going to speak tonight, but I wanted to focus on safety and security. We have a series of problems, some of which are all are affecting all of our area in Arlington, but some seem to be preventable if we could get our building management on board. As you all may recall, Crystal House was formerly managed by JBG Smith. It's owned by the Washington Housing Conservancy, and it was able to purchase Crystal House thanks to a very, very large grant from Amazon. One of the challenges is that the county does not have any leverage with the Washington Housing Conservancy in terms of holding a loan agreement, holding a tax credit package, because Amazon provided the funding. But we've got all these safety and security issues. I was able to work with Amazon, and they did pay for security cameras, which have been broken ever since JBG Smith left. So we now do have a security camera system. It's not clear whether that's adequate. We continue to have substantial issues with homeless and displaced people squatting in units in our building. And that is exacerbated by management leaving doors unlocked, by management not working with county social services, management not working with the police in an appropriate manner.
10 seconds.
Yes. So I've added to my testimony with some materials that I've shared via email. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'll open the floor. Commissioners, you will have one round of comments. See if there's a need for follow-up. David.
Rebecca, so it sounds like some of the issues that you originally came to see us about have been resolved once code enforcement was involved. Is that right?
I think one of the things we discussed was access to the pool, and that never really got resolved once when the pool closed last September. And it didn't get resolved because I thought that you all were going straight to code enforcement. I didn't understand that you were asking me to do that myself. So code enforcement did not get involved until October. So no, those issues did not get resolved. There was one issue with the door that wasn't shutting. And then in October, once I understood I had to go to code enforcement, she did cite them for having a, froze and shut emergency exit.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that we had reached out to code enforcement. So
we cannot, we cannot reach out to code enforcement. The person making the complaint has to do so because code enforcement will block him. So she has to lodge the complaint, a formal complaint, and they will.
Did we let her know?
Sure.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll take a closer look at our internal procedures that shouldn't have happened, where it resulted in a delay between when you talked to us and when code enforcement got involved. So I appreciate you letting us know that happened. It sounds like there are people getting inside of the building because the security system is inadequate, or because the doors are being left ajar. How is it that people are getting inside?
It's a combination of ways. Some of it is doors being left open. There's an issue where the fire marshal has apparently said that we had to take a fob access door off, and we haven't been able to find that hard to believe and haven't been able to get some resolution there. So the loading dock door, when it is open, anyone can enter the building. So it's a matter of trying to make the concierges keep the loading dock door closed unless it's being actively used for a move-in. There is a belief that some of the homeless people were able to get fobs, or at least one example where I don't know if they found a set of dropped keys, but they've got a fob and they can get into the building and then they share and help each other out, but they don't have a fob to access an actual apartment. So then they go and live in the vacants, which are being left unlocked by management. And that's something that code enforcement did follow up on in January, but it's like whack-a-mole for us as residents to be like, oh my God, there's another unlocked door in my hallway or vacant where they've taken the locked off. Am I going to have, just strangers who may have mental health issues sleeping in the vacant unit across from my hallway?
So,
Kristen,
so I just heard you say they actually take the lock itself off. So it's not even like they forgot to lock the door. There's nothing to lock. Exactly.
So apparently they don't have it. They don't keep enough locking mechanisms in stock. So if a apartment that is occupied, that resident has a failure in their lockbox, they go and poach one off the vacant unit and install that, and then just leave it that way. And
Rebecca, are your locks electronic locks or key locks?
they are electronic fob locks, yes. And I think maybe when I was here in July, you knew something about the system that they had, and that there have been maybe some issues with things being discontinued. I don't.
Yeah, after I asked the question, I knew my answer. I just had a little brain fart. It's late.
No, that's okay.
I've got some caffeine. I'll be better in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Any other
So, and then we
comments?
also, there are some issues with residents who prop the door open or leave. They sort of put tape over it, so it's hard to see, or we don't know, and some of that I realize management can't do a lot with. And they have sent, included in notices, please do not let people follow you in. I turned around recently and asked a woman who had followed me in if she had a fob, and she started screaming at me and filming me. So it is a challenge, and I do appreciate the challenge that it is, but it seems like it could be helped if we had on-site security. And we had a residents meeting last week, and management said they sent out for bids. They were surprised by how much it cost and cannot afford to have on-site security. This is really disturbing, especially since, as you probably know, Crystal House is a construction site where the county is building so many additional buildings through True Ground Housing Partners. And that's part of one of my questions. Can the county help provide security at Crystal House? The police, I know, feel that this has become a very burdensome property for them to deal with.
Any other comments, David?
Yeah, you may have included it in the materials you sent just before the meeting, but what has management's response been to these requests? It sounds like you're fairly organized. I assume you're keeping track and you're keeping these things in writing.
Management's response, one of the examples, and I know I just sent that out, but I did include our response where they have some boilerplate copy that they copy and paste and just say, as temperatures drop, more people more homeless people try to access the building, and they just copy and paste that to everyone. And it was good to hear that they at least tried to find private security. We learned that at a meeting last week. But again, they just said that they couldn't afford it and that they didn't know what was going to happen. So that was.
It sounds like you have gathered a group of residents. Is this something that where you meet regularly, like a residents council or a tenants council?
No, we have a Facebook page. That's the best we can do. And then there is a lively, there is an internal app for residents. They do, and I put they do block me from posting, and others who seem to try to get involved in advocacy get blocked from posting on the app. Like, for example, I tried to post that there was a tenants meeting, and that got posted that got immediately marked as under review, or the County Landlord Tenants Commission. So it's difficult to try to organize. But yes, we do sort of connect with each other via Facebook, or we meet in hallways and try to get each other's names.
Thank you, Rebecca. Well, since Alexis will also be talking about a similar issue regarding Crystal House, we'll follow up regarding your materials, but we'll turn the floor over to Alexis.
Thanks.
Alexis, you have 3 minutes.
Thanks, everybody. Yes, Rebecca does such a thorough job of advocating for our community. I just wanted to jump in with some more managerial issues. I think Rebecca has focused a lot on safety, which is definitely a concern, but a large concern that we also have is just the challenges with our leasing office and with getting management to respond in general. I really was looking to the Landlord Tenant Commission to help us communicate a little better with not just the property management, but even with Cushman Wakefield as a whole. I have tried to get in touch with them numerous times. I did finally get my lease renewal resolved, but it was 2 months late, and that was only because I was bothering them week in, week out. I went to the Washington Housing Conservancy to finally get a response to my emails. That's an undue burden on tenants, and it's not even legal. And so I do understand that, unfortunately, the way that Virginia law is set up, the onus falls onto the tenant to bring legal action, but no one wants the courts clogged up with kind of nonsense claims like this. Is there something more that we can do as a community? Is there something more that I can do to advocate so that everybody stops having these issues? I mean, Rebecca's lease just lapsed. I know everybody who posts just says, has anybody been able to contact leasing? Oh, they never respond to emails. Oh, you can phone and leave a message. Oh, they don't get back to messages. If you can go in person, well, not everyone has the ability to go in person during office hours. This is an actual legal burden that they're putting on people, and we do have a very large low income, moderate income population. It's unacceptable that they are continuing to work this way. So I wondered what kind of advocacy the commission can do to help us out.
Thank you.
I'm done speaking.
Thank you, Alexis. Commissioners, any comments?
I have a question.
Hey, Chair.
Since you mentioned it's legal issues, and someone from the email that Rebecca said there were people who were attacked or had crimes against them, have you considered talking to an attorney about at least not threatening, but maybe sending some type of letter to management that this is a potential case?
Have I considered it? Absolutely.
Well,
am
have you
I
done
at the
it?
point?
I guess
am
the
I at
question
the point
is-
where I'm willing to
Yeah.
move forward with that? So first of all, I have found them to be largely impervious to legal threats because they also know the law, and they know that unless somebody brings suit against them, which is expensive, time consuming, just all has its own challenges, they know that nobody's going to follow through. Am I considering taking on all of those things myself? Yes, I am, because I'm pretty fed up with the way that they're treating people. But I do not believe personally that they would respond to the threat of legal action. I don't think that would change anything about how they are currently doing business.
Alexis,
And I would,
Kristen?
when you get to that next level of frustration, I think that rather than going to a traditional landlord-tenant lawyer, you may want to go look at it from a different angle, which would be fair housing. And see, I hear some things that make me think that there's some retaliatory actions being taken by your landlord, such
That's
as
more than true.
blocking communication. You mentioned that there was an underserved population there, and that, had a very mixed community. There could be, and I, not having all the facts and not knowing who are reaching out to your landlords, and to Wakefield Cushman, you may want to take a different angle. Fair housing, there are protected classes, there are federal protected classes, there are state protected classes, and then there are county protected classes. And there could be a reason that your landlord or Cushman Wakefield are saying, we don't want to deal with these people, which is a violation of fair housing, which no landlord wants to touch. Doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter who you are. And the fines for those are extraordinary. And every county, every landlord is obligated by law to have their leasing agents, maintenance, front desk staff, resident managers, all have to have that fair housing training. And there could be some people there who have not had that, and they should not be working in the public domain of multifamily housing. So it may be a different approach. I don't know for sure because I don't have all the details, but
those are pretty tough cases to prove. I think in the current environment, there will be fewer resources dedicated to running those offices. I hope that's not true, but things are looking challenging for the DC area in general, especially with the Justice Department. Absolutely, I would consider that. I don't think that will bring anyone in I don't think that will help us out anytime soon, I guess I would say.
I would venture to say that no landlord even wants it to get that far. So I think that it's a different way to approach it. Again, not having all the facts and not knowing who the people are who are having these interactions with landlords.
Live.
It's a hybrid meeting.
that, yeah,
Hold up.
that is helpful. I think,
I think the person's now muted. Okay. Is there any other comments from commissioners?
I think it's important to note that there are a number of legal organizations, and what we can do, Rebecca, is we can send you, the names of those, like Legal Services of Northern Virginia, for instance, who can take on cases for people who qualify based on their income. I also think that as a commission, we should discuss bringing Cushman Wakefield to a next commission meeting, or at a minimum sending them a letter and articulating some of these concerns. Seems like Rebecca's doing a very good job documenting this. So, as opposed to some other times where we're not really sure what we're dealing with, we might be able to, advocate more forcefully, like on the whole. And so that's what I would suggest that we take out of the public comment here.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
That would be really helpful to have them held to account a little bit more.
Sarah?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Rebecca and Alexis, for coming. I'm also a tenant and I've been in a similar situation. So I just wanted to let you know that I understand your frustrations, and I can imagine how frustrating it is to feel unsafe in your own home and to repeatedly, face constant frustrations from management. Can be just so demoralizing. And I think it's great that y'all are here. I think, as you mentioned, like not everyone has the time and resources to do that. So I really appreciate y'all representing your broader community. And I would be fully in support of having Cushman Wakefield come and for us to really prepare questions for them about this, because this sounds like, quite frankly, an unsafe situation that no one at Crystal House should be experiencing. So just thank you for being here.
Thank you. I would also like to say before we move on, to point out Washington Housing Conservancy's role in everything. I know that they are not a Virginia entity, but we might get a little bit more traction if we reached out to them simultaneously. I don't know if that's a possibility or if it's just falling on Cushman Wakefield, but Washington Housing Conservancy does own this property. Any legal action would be against them, not against Cushman Wakefield, because of how the
Okay.
VLRTA was set up. But I would love to have advocacy help working with both WHC and Cushman Wakefield.
Well, thank you, Alexis, and thank you, Rebecca, for your comments.
Thank
We will
you.
take under advisement and consideration later on in this meeting, whether or not to send them a letter or to see if they can be present at our upcoming commission. But
Thanks
thank
for
you
your
all. No problem. And thank you for bringing your concerns to the commission. Is there anyone else for public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item. It's the approval of the February minutes. Are there any edits, or is there a motion to call the question?
I did have a comment.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's the one that I had.
Okay. So,
I'm sure it was autocorrect.
Some reason autocorrect doesn't know my
okay, so
Gotta add to dictionary.
is there was that revised? Okay. Was it sent out the?
Revised version? No.
Yeah, okay.
It was just one.
Okay, so is there a motion?
So moved.
So the motion is to move the minutes with the revision of correcting Griffin's last name. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Hi.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on, we have our guest speaker for this evening. It is Alice Hogan from the Northern Virginia Housing Alliance. So welcome, Alice, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I wondered if you all wouldn't mind just letting me know your own names and a little bit, so I understand who I'm talking with.
Sure.
So I can start with myself. My name's Alice Hogan. I grew up here in Arlington. I've been working in affordable housing for a long time. I spent about 12 or 13 years on the Housing Commission, and a similar length of time on the APA, which is now True Ground Partners, Housing Partners, on their board. And I work now with Navaja Arlington, and it used to be Alliance for Housing Solutions. You've heard of them. Yeah, so I was invited to come and just tell a little bit about what Navaja does and answer any questions you all would have. That's me.
All right, David Tim, I'm the chair. I've been on the commission since 2019.
Hi, Sarah Landford. I'm a renter in Arlington, tenant representative. Been here in the county for 8 years, on the commission for about a year and a half.
Andrew Ferreira, been on the commission since for 2 years now, and then the vice chair. Lived in the county since 2016.
I'm Kristen Clegg. I'm a landlord for Ditmar Company here in Arlington, and I'm on my 3rd term. So how many ever? 9 years, 8? A while.
John Reynolds, I've been with the commission for about a year and a half now, renter here in Courthouse, representing public interest for the commission.
Griffin Copal, also been on the commission for a little over a year. Been in Arlington for about 5 years now, representing public interest and also work in affordable housing.
Hi, I'm Nature Lewis. I'm a tenant here in Arlington. I live in the Charlottesville area, and I've been on the commission for a couple of months
Rola and I already know each other. This is really good. begin?
You
I
can
don't
begin.
know. Okay. So if you don't mind pulling up my slides for me. So I brought some slides just to talk a little bit about our organization and what we focus on in Arlington. And then, happy to answer any questions. I do have my business card if anybody would like it afterward. So Navaja is Northern Virginia Affordable Housing Alliance. We're a regional nonprofit, and we cover 5 jurisdictions in the Northern Virginia area. So it's Arlington, Alexandria City, Fairfax, Prince William, and Loudoun counties. So my focus, I'm the director of the Arlington branch. Should I just use this and go forward?
No, you can
what's
just
good?
let them know. Thanks.
Oh, okay, next, please. Okay. So these are kind of our mission and our vision. So we work to promote the supply and access to affordable housing, and we do it through these methods of education, advocacy, and community partnership. And these are some of our core goals, that housing is the core of our lives, right? It's about people, racial equity, health, economic development, inclusion, and we get there through partnerships. Next, please. So I mentioned AHS, just to let you know, some folks in the community are familiar with Alliance for Housing Solutions. That was a nonprofit here in the county for 20 years, and I worked for them prior to this. And then last year, at the first of last year, we merged together. So kind of an AHS was sort of a mini Navaja, and so just for financial and logistical and kind of vision reasons, it made sense to merge. So now the kind of AHS portion, which is my section, kind of became the Arlington prong of Navaja. Next, please. So just to talk a little bit about affordable housing, I'm sure all of you know all of these things, that for anyone else on the call. So affordable is when the rent you're paying for your unit is less than 30% of your gross monthly income. So in an area as expensive as this, most of us are probably slightly housing cost burdened, right? Many of us may pay, 30 to 40%. And then folks with lower income, as you go down that scale, that burden rises more and more. So those are the folks who are very at risk for eviction, or they'll leave the county. And for a variety of reasons, we need all folks at all income levels to kind of maintain our a healthy and balanced community. So these are some of the benefits of affordability. So one is our community values, right? We value diversity, and that's one of our core community values. I think you may know that Columbia Pike is one of the most diverse corridors in the country. So it's really something of a place of pride, and people are leaving quickly. So it's some of that kind of motivates folks to get involved. Obviously, economic impact. New employers don't want to come here if their folks need to drive 45 minutes or an hour from here. They'd rather go to a community where there's a lot of work and housing close by to make that easy for folks. So that kind of also goes straight into environmental, right? Like to build and to densify more core areas in our country makes sense environmentally, to slow down our carbon impact, and to utilize infrastructure and transit that already exists. Of course, family and student success. I'm sure this commission thinks about that a lot, right? That folks on the lower end who are unable to make their rent, each month they end up moving around a lot, like couch surfing, doubling up. It's very stressful on families, children, all kinds of career and scholastic successes. So stability is really crucial for our well-being, and of course, health and wellness, lowering that stress. And folks have more time and energy to participate in our community and share what they have for us. Next, please. So just a little bit of background. This is kind of the stuff that I do when I go out into the communities, talk about our situation, where we are in our housing patterns, and why we need to keep on top of it. So how did we get where we are? So you'll remember that in 2008, 2009, we had that economic downturn. So prior to that, you can see the blue, the upper part of the bars, that's single family, and the orange is multifamily. So even back in 2000s up to 2008, we weren't even meeting our needs as a nation. And then we nosedived in that downturn. And then you can see we've really never recovered. So we should be where we are at 2004 or more. And so all that white in between there is a gap. This particular bar is for the DC and Arlington, Alexandria area, but with nationwide, it's a similar looking graph. So we're really playing catch up. Next slide, please. Oops, you go back one. Oh, okay, that is it. Okay, thanks. So then, when supply is down, then, demand goes up and rent goes with it. So this is just a little chart and it only goes to 2022. I need to get them more recent because I learned just recently that the average rent in Arlington of all sizes is $2,600 a month. So that's your average. If you're making less than average money here, you are, competing in a market you really cannot afford. So you can see the blue is mid and a high rise. The orange is garden because we don't have as many of those, and then all are the gray. So it's pretty much an upward trajectory, and it definitely has not, salaries have not kept up with our rent, as I'm sure you know. Okay, next slide. Is it Hector? So this is just another one to show what's happening in Arlington. So again, from 2000 till a couple of years ago, the blue line are the marks. So that's a market rate affordable unit that is just affordable in the open market by virtue that it's older or not well situated, not well kept, those kinds of things. So you can see we had a lot of those. And for many years, we were literally using 1,000 a year for multiple years in a row. And just recently, it's starting to calm. And that was mostly because development kind of halted during COVID. And so some of the redevelopments and knockdowns weren't happening. And then yellow is that upper level of marks, which for the most part, we don't subsidize. There are some at 80, but very few. And mostly that's going up because the 60% units are just becoming 80% units. So there's not like an increase, it's just a change in value. And then orange is Arlington's attempt to counter this trend. So we have a little over 11,000 affordable housing units in the county now. And the goal is maybe 5,000 or 6,000 more. And we're a long way from that number. Okay, Hector? Okay, so then we look a little bit at our population. So if you look at the bars on the left, that's household size. So this is a projection from George Mason in the Fuller Institute. You may be familiar with that, about what's going to happen to Arlington's population in the next 20 years. So you can tell those 4 bars that, 1, 2, and 3 person households are the growth places. So we don't need the larger units as much. And most of them will be 1 and 2 bedroom units. So like 60% of our community will need a smaller unit. And then when we look on the right, that's household age. So as you all know, we're coming into a silver wave, and Arlington is no exception. We will have thousands of people moving towards 85 and plus, and our very old or very expensive housing is not suitable either by price or by design for folks with disabilities, mobility issues, fixed income, etc. So it just kind of puts gives us a background for where we stand. Okay, Hector. And then I just wanted to talk briefly about racial issues. So Arlington has a not great history of racial segregation in the county. And that, has been coming to light very much since 2000. A lot of efforts are being made. We did, as a county, they did pass the missing middle effort, which was also an effort to bring smaller units, but also spread around the county in areas that were mostly where renting wasn't happening, small units were not happening, and that is in the courts right now, so we'll see what happens. But I did want to show you this map. So if you were to look at the yellow areas, what happened in the 1930s, 100 years ago and through today, is that zoning has controlled what types of housing can be built in what areas. So this is a map showing that in Arlington, all of these yellow areas are currently zoned single family only. So you have to have one lot, a certain size, a building a certain size, and only one household can reside there. So then the county went back to see what is the racial makeup of those neighborhoods. So you can see the gridded area, which almost perfectly mimics the yellow, by design, right? Here we are today to see that all the graded areas are occupied by 70, 80, 90, or 100% white households. So we can see that the zoning met its purpose, which was to segregate our community. So it's just another aspect of our housing that we want to keep in mind when we're advocating and thinking about policy. Next slide. And this is just another way of looking at it. This is more, this is rental, and it's more coming from the income side of things. So if you look along the bottom little chart, you can see that the median income for those households by race goes from low to high, where Black or African-American families literally make half or less than half of what white households make in Arlington. So you have two completely different racial populations competing for the same housing, and one population has double the money to do it. So you see right away what a challenge that is. And then Hispanic and Asian are making their way towards white. So in the maps, you can see on the far right, if you're a white household, and I think the very top section, there was just a data error. Clearly, it's all purple. And so if you're white, you can pretty much afford a median rent anywhere in the county. And then as you move from Asian to Latino and all the way to Black, you can see that there are tiny nooks where folks with those income levels could still find a place that they can afford at that affordable 30% of their gross income. So we have a lot of challenges in Arlington, as small as we are. Thank you, Hector. So these are some of the challenges that come from it, right? Affordability, displacement, a lack of home ownership opportunities, so folks cannot move into ownership, aging in place. The next generation can barely afford to rent, right? Never mind own and be our next generation of owners. We lose our socioeconomic and racial diversity, and there's major segregation in our schools. And just one quick anecdote that I like to share. So you may be familiar with Carlin Springs Elementary near Kenmore School, which is south of Arlington Boulevard. And then you could compare that to maybe Jamestown, Nottingham, elementaries in the far north of our county. Those schools are about 5 miles apart, and their racial profile is completely mirroring each other. So at Carlin Springs, there's 95 to 98% children of color, and that's the same number at Jamestown, Nottingham, of white children. So clearly our housing patterns, quote unquote, worked to what folks 100 years ago wanted to see happen, and folks today, we want to work to undo that. And how do we repair that damage and return opportunity to all parties? Thank you, Hector. Next slide.
No more slides.
Slides. There's like 30 slides.
There are more slides, Hector. What's going on?
No,
Can you
that's,
try again?
let me try again.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Oh.
Sorry.
So clearly we could talk about this for a very long time. I'll try to go quickly through my slides.
Okay.
Thank you. This is the Washington Council of Governments, COG, MCOG, you may have heard of. They're taking a look at, and they did, in the past few years, look at the housing crisis on a regional basis. And this after a huge study and interaction or collaboration among all the DMV jurisdictions. These were the goals that were set for 5 years from now. So we need over 300,000 more housing units to accommodate the growth in our area. Accessibility, those units should be in activity areas and near transit, right? Again, to slow our traffic, increase or improve our environment. And that we mostly need affordable units. So 75% of the new housing should be affordable to low and middle income households where most of the job growth is. And so we really have a mismatch of the needs and what we actually have in our stock. And so it's a big challenge. So Arlington is maybe about a 7th or 6th or 7th of that of the region. And so for us, that's like 60,000 more units that we need to come online. That's a big, tall order. Okay, next. So I just wanted to remind you all of the Arlington mission. You probably know what it is. Does anybody want to read it? I feel like I'm doing all the talk. Would one of you read it? Okay, thanks.
Arlington will be a diverse and inclusive world-class urban community with secure, attractive residential and commercial neighborhoods where people unite to form a caring, learning, participating, sustainable community in which each person is.
So that's kind of our guiding light as a community, as a county. Next. So in 2015, you may be familiar with the Affordable Housing Master Plan. It is 10 years old this year. It was a major guiding document. It was the first time we did a master plan around housing. So it was a big production and a big accomplishment. And now this year there are annual reports on it, but this will be the 10-year review. So there's a needs analysis going on. There will be a lot of opportunity for community input and kind of taking a look at 10 years later, how has our stock changed? How has our population changed? What are the new needs? And how do we kind of reshape our goals for the next decades to come? So just letting you know that exists. It's a really great document. You know, the focus of that document is access to housing of all kinds, sustainability of housing in our community, and affordability. So that's where the three kind of goals, and there are all these other goals within it. So we'll see where that goes, and I encourage all of you to be a part, and I'm sure you will in your commission, in those deliberations. So, next. So that plan helped us identify many areas either were being done, programs in the county, or new ones that were initiated. So I won't read all of them to you, but you can see low income, affordability, production, how to save the market rate units that are on the market, that we could preserve them as affordable, and then expanding our types and our tools. So the county does quite a bit, and it's still an uphill battle, but I think the commitment is there. And in fact, in this year's proposed budget, which hasn't passed yet, about $100 million of county funds are going towards some aspect of housing, whether it's services or production and everything in between. Thank you, Hector. Okay, so just a little bit on production. We know that there are two ways to get to affordability, right? Supply. So we either build it or preserve it, right, of what we have or what we need. And then the type. So do our types of units match what people need in the community? So you're kind of looking at all those things when you think about expanding supply. And then how do we do that? Well, we do that to make some of that stock affordable. We need to inject funds in it, right? Because financially, a building that asks for below market rent is not financially feasible going forward. So there have to be injections of other kinds of money to make that balance sheet work, right? So the county, the state, the feds, other grant funding foundations, there's a lot of methods of bringing together a financial package for a building to either be preserved or constructed. Next. So a quick note about the AHIF. That's our Affordable Housing Investment Fund. That's our major vehicle to assist these units in coming online. So this is just a quick graphic that shows you that it's a revolving fund. It's a loan. The money comes back, and when it's repaid, it's out again to the next round. And that's where we've gotten to over 11,000 units that are affordable. I think maybe some of the early ones that are still in their affordability would be for less, but most of them are 50, 60. And now we're really getting 99 years of affordability out of this investment. So it's in Arlington funds, it's a $1 to $14 leverage that we get for every $1 we invest. So it's very valuable investment for for the return we get as a community. Next slide. So just a quickie on who is eligible. So this is from HUD. It does say certain city housing, we're a county, but it's the same figures for us. So I might just point you to that kind of middle column of 4-person, because a lot of people use a 4-member household as a gauge, right? So if you had a household of 4 and you made 30% of AMI, then your income would be $46,000. If you were a household of 4 making less than $46,000 a year, then you would be eligible to apply for one of these units. And you can go all the way to 60% of AMI. So imagine how many households we do have that are 4-person households with 1 or 2 earners making $92,000 a year. That's not an insignificant amount of money. So as our market, soars and our incomes don't, more and more people who are making what we think is a decent income are actually becoming eligible because it is so hard to rent in this market. Next. So these are some of the things that we do in the county, like we talked about with the AHIP, preserve what we have, produce new units as much as we can, and then protect our tenants, our renters from displacement, and also that they can know and protect their own rights as a tenant in the county. Next. I wanted to show you a few examples. So Arlington does not have a housing authority. Like many communities do, we rely on our partners in the community to own, build, operate these units for us. So we don't have the right as a county to own anything. So that's where we use our fund. We help these other nonprofits. We provide them that gap funding, and then they can move forward with a preservation or redevelopment or a new build. So we're getting very creative in Arlington because there's not much land left. And we need to use the air. So some of our nonprofits, so our main nonprofit developers here are True Ground Housing Partners, Affordable Homes and Communities, which used to be AHC, and then Wesley Housing. So these are a couple examples. On the left, this was APA, now True Ground. They partnered with Arlington Presbyterian Church, which is on Columbia Pike, very close to South Glebe, and they rebuilt that building. The church maintains a portion of the first floor, and then there are, I think, 173 units in the air above it. So the church got what they needed. They pulled the value out of the home and did what they wanted to do, which was a mission-driven redevelopment to provide housing for their neighbors. On the right, we have a project that was just passed last month in the county. This is the Melwood site on South 23rd Street, close to Crystal City. It's on the same as Restaurant Row, maybe 2 blocks west. And this is a small building on a large lot that's adjacent to a park. And that is a training facility. This nonprofit, Melwood, trains adults with disabilities with employment skills and helps with employment placement. So they really realized that they have this plot of land, they could use the value, and their constituents need housing. They make such low income as a disabled person that they cannot afford in this market. So they partnered up with Wesley, and now the county has said yes. So they'll go through the process and see if they can make it happen. It will be 105 affordable units, many family-size units, which is great for low-income families. And then 30% of the units will be set aside for adults with disabilities. So it's a really amazing partnership. And Melwood will remain on the first floor to do that training and placement. And they're also bringing in another nonprofit called Our Stomping Ground. You guys may be familiar with OSG. They provide volunteer supports for activities of daily living and how to manage yourself in the residential side of. So they will be on site and supporting folks in the building who need extra support to live independently. Next. A few others. So Barcroft Apartments, I'm sure you're familiar. That was on the open market. Arlington was able, by a sheer miracle, to swoop in with the help of Amazon and then the purchaser, Jair Lynch, to save that property, which was 1,355 very affordable units that were at high risk of redevelopment and major displacement. So we saved all those units. They're in the process of being renovated, expanded, and then some new housing will go on there. And those units, all 1335, will be affordable for 99 years. So that is a huge, progress point for the county. On the bottom, you'll see Unity Homes, which is another APA, now True Ground, another example of partnering up with a church. It was Central United. It's literally facing Ballston Metro. So on the left side where that car is the Ballston Metro station. And same thing, the church gets the bottom. They use the top for many, many units, and they're literally on top of a metro station. So it's a perfect location for folks not needing a car. And then on the right, and is an example of a redevelopment. So this is AHC's property, very pretty eastern part of Columbia Pike near Washington Boulevard. And they're doing a multi-phased redevelopment of that property. This one will be 80 new units, and they have a big focus on environmental construction at that site. So that one's in progress. Okay. Yeah, I know. I gotta check. Let me see. I don't know if I can tell or not. We can skip this one, Hector. That's okay. That's the same. Okay, I wanted to point out that the county has an affordable housing dashboard, amazing data resource for all kinds of things, housing and affordability. So I really encourage folks to go check it out. And I'll just point out the top two left ones. So this is a snapshot from a few months ago. So it's naming 11,213. We actually have 11,355 now. And the goal off the master plan is that second box where it says we're going to 17.7% of all housing in the county should be affordable. So at this point, we have just over 12%. So we're missing 5%. Okay, Hector. So Navaja does a lot of advocacy, public education, and convenings. So these are some of the things that we recommend people do when they want to advocate for housing. So the county board offers open door Mondays. You can always speak at a county board meeting, either in public comment or if it's on an issue that's on the agenda, you speak during the that agenda item. Obviously, writing them postcards and emails. Lots of surveys come out. The county is constantly looking for feedback. Clearly letters to the editor, and talk among your friends and in your community about how everyone needs housing, right? And every income level needs housing because we need each other. Okay. So Navaja has a few things going on each month. We have a lunch and learn on one Wednesday. It's not a particular one day, not a particular day, always at noontime. And it's on different topics. So last month and this month, we focused on the immigration issue because so many tenants are so scared and feeling so unsure. And so our idea was to try to pull together service providers and housers to talk about how we can best support that population with things like the red cards that we're distributing and know your rights information sessions, etc. So you're very welcome to come to those anytime. We announce them each month. Okay. Once a year, we do a listen and learn at the MLK Day of Service, which the county puts on, typically the Saturday before Martin Luther King Day. And we talk about housing, affordable housing, which Martin Luther King was ahead of his time talking about in the 60s. And of course, the racial issue, which we touched on today, but in a deeper. And we partner up with the other three, or the main three developers in Arlington, so they can highlight what they're doing in our community to help solve this problem. Okay. I wanted to point out this, which AHS produced this video before we became Navaja, but it is available online. It is 7 minutes long. I highly recommend it. There's amazing footage. We have so many great pictures and maps talking about some of what I briefly spoke about before.
Yeah, let's the slides be shared.
Yes, I can say it. Yeah. And so you can Google it. It's just Race and Housing in Arlington video. And I think you'd all get a lot out of it. If, as we are all passionate about this issue, it's great to know where we came from as a county. Okay, next. We also hold an annual forum called the Lecky Forum, named after one of our AHS founders. And we bring together professionals and experts on a certain topic. We have kind of a learn from 3 to 5, and then we have a reception from 5 to 7, and we honor people in the community who are working hard on housing. So that's going to be in September. And again, you're welcome to join us. Next. This is a little bit about what we've been doing of late around tenants. So we're all familiar with the challenges that were going on at the Serrano. So we were part of that convening and trying to support the different parties in that process. I mentioned to you about Melwood, how we're advocating for folks with disabilities to live in our community. Excuse me, we work also on older adults and the special housing that folks need. We're trying to support immigrants and housers and service providers of immigrants. And then, of course, at this time of year, we're working hard on the budget and just lifting it up as a moral document about what our values are as a community. Okay, I think I just have 2 more. So these are some of the things we do. I encourage you to stay in touch with us. the newsletter, I believe, the Housing in Action newsletter might have been distributed to all of you this last month. I'm happy to share that again. You can also email me and get on that list. It will also include, if you're on that list, an invite to our monthly meeting, which is the second Wednesday of the month, Housing Action Arlington. And we talk about all these kinds of things, development, budget, services, different issues that are coming up. It can kind of give you like a overview of current goings on in Arlington's housing world. And then Navaja overall has a rising housing leaders program, which is a free kind of mentor type program that offers folks who are coming into housing as a profession a way to meet folks and learn more and develop their skills and network. So, Hector, I think that's it. Is there anything else? Yep, that's it. So how can we work together as a community and bring Arlington to everyone? So that's my name, my phone number, my email, and I look forward to hearing from any of you. I have my cards, and I probably ran a little over, but if you have a question, I'm happy to answer any that I might be able to answer.
I think you have time for 1 or 2 questions, but Sarah.
Thank you so much. This has been really, really helpful. I'm curious how you all think that current situation across the river, especially in terms of job loss, is going to impact like the market and how many people need more affordable units versus how many people are just going to leave. Could that possibly lower rental prices? Like, I'm just trying to think
all of
through
those things
that.
could happen.
Okay.
I mean, it's a huge concern we all have, right? It's very unknown. I mean, to me, I was working in this area when COVID hit, you know, and it feels a little similar. Here we are at the beginning of the year wondering what is about to happen to us, right? So one of the things that happened in the budget this year is that the AHIF fund I talked to you about, development, is very much lower than it was. And last year was our highest year ever at $21.5 million. Amazing. And this year it's at like 12.3, so almost half. And while I'm sad about that, because we can't solve the problem without more units, and we can't get homeless people out of shelters if there's not a very low income for them to go to. So we can't stop production for long, but in an emergency or potential emergency, we did something very similar in 2000. So my attitude, and advocates that I'm talking with were like, thank you for the 12.4 or 12, whatever it's going to turn out to be. We understand we can't have more. And also thanking them because the county board at this point is thinking about putting $11 million in a contingency fund. And so that is for the unexpected. It might be to support immigrants, you know, eviction, legal representation of folks who are good. And now all of a sudden, what will we do with federal workers, right? You might have a mortgage. If there's two people working for the feds and all of a sudden you both lose your job, like, so there are a lot of unknowns. Now, I do think some people may leave the area out of desperation. So there could actually be a slight softening in the market because of that. But I more think it'll be, you know, suffering in the environment. So we really don't know exactly what to expect. And luckily we're in a very proactive county, so they're aware of all this. And we all just have to kind of stay tuned and see how we can be of support and what steps the county can do to try to bolster things up until we find our way out of this mess. So.
Thank you, Alice.
Very welcome.
And if anyone else has any comments, feel free to take her business card and contact her offline. She's very
Does
accessible.
anybody else want a card?
Yeah, just did you, another one, please?
Big slide.
For
Okay,
conversation,
thank you.
but
I'll stay for a little bit and then I'll
yeah.
head out. Thank you so much. It was great to be with you.
Yes, of course.
Maybe a resource at
More
any
than
point.
welcome to come up. Moving on to our next agenda item is Salud from Bugada.
Another partner.
I
So-
am here.
Okay, the floor is yours.
Great. So my presentation is about an hour long, so just sit tight. No, I promise it won't be that long. I'll send you guys home soon. So, well, hello everyone. It's good to be back again to give you a snapshot of the work that we've done over the last year. And so without further ado, let me see. I'm going to share my screen because I do have a presentation to go along and help with the visuals. So let me see. Are you all able to see the screen?
Yes.
Great. Awesome. Finally figured this thing out. All right, so this is the work that we did over the 2024 year, and this goes on to cover a little bit of 2025 into January. And so let me tell you, the objective that we have, the work that we do with the tenant outreach and education, is to conduct outreach, provide housing information and education, housing counseling and referrals, conflict resolution, eviction prevention, and relocation assistance. With the ultimate goal is that through all the activities that we do, will help maintain and further develop an informed renter community that is, one, knowledgeable and empowered to exercise their rights and understand their role in obtaining and maintaining affordable housing in the county. You heard a lot about that from Alice. So here's a snapshot of the different issue areas that we help, and it's got a count of how many of those roughly through the year. It turned out to be a little bit over 200. In issues ranging from people asking about how to end or break their lease, or writing a notice to management to either notify and say, hey, it's within the 60-day time frame or 30-day time frame, and I'd like to terminate my lease or end my lease. Also, actually, that's a different category further down. This category right here is when residents are just upset that their issues they haven't received a response, and so they're not satisfied with management, and so they can issue their own notice to say, hey, listen, if you don't fix this for me, then it's also, I call it 2130. So if you don't fix it within 21 days, then by law I can move out in 30 days. So they can use that. Collections, we saw one where a resident was sent over to collections for unpaid rent. Communicating with management. Sometimes it takes a letter or a call to do that. Emergency rental assistance. We've seen some of those for preventing eviction. Actually, that should be going along with the other category of eviction prevention, which totals out to should be 30. We also help filling out forms for additional assistance that residents may need for stability at home. Acting as a housing locator, that's another big one that, in the year we did about 21 of those, actually 21. Helping fill out apartment leasing applications. We had several of those. Leasing renewals, that's a big one that we see a lot in the year. That means renewing their leases and also going through, in the case of affordable housing, going through the recertification process. And so there's issues that come up with that. And so there's a lot of questions and people come to us with that. I mentioned earlier the lease termination. That's when the resident wants to notify management that they want to move out. Lease violation, this is the opposite. When management gives the tenant 2130s for a lease violation, that could be remedied. So they have the option to remedy that situation within 21 days or move out in 30 days. Lease rights, some questions about, VRLTA, ledger discrepancy. We saw several this year in some properties where residents' rent was not applied correctly. And so for that reason, they were either received violation notices or late rent notices. Letters to management, that one broke off the other category. So that's another 14 right there. Letters and communications with management, that's another one that came there. It's separated from the others. I'm not sure how that did happen in this table, but maintenance requests. We have talked about some residents still needing assistance writing letters when they need something repaired in the apartment. So we help them with that. Those that say with reference to code, those are referred over to the county for code enforcement. The category below without reference to code is just, we simply just help them write a letter, and the resident then takes that to management. Management staff landlord issue usually is unresponsive management. So then we have to escalate and contact either, the regional manager or reach out to ownership. That's when, we do more intervention and help out, the resident one-on-one. Move out, there's another category that broke out of the other category above. It's also sending notices of intent to move out. Parking, we only saw 2 this past year, so that's a good thing to celebrate. Pest control, we only saw 1 that required assistance, intervention to get treatment in their apartment. Relocation questions and assistance, we saw a lot. I'm going to share another chart later on, and you're going to see a lot of that. And that's because Barcroft is going through that project. So there's been some questions from residents. That's why that's a high number this year. Rental assistance and applications, that was kind of high too. And these are residents who need rental assistance, filling out applications for their housing grants or referrals to DHS or to other either nonprofits or churches that provide rental assistance. Security deposit, we only saw 2 this past year. And utilities, we had 3 residents who had issues with their utilities. And so they needed help to resolve that with management. In the next slide, it's a little more visual of the same numbers you just saw, and just to show what the trend was, or what was more, what we saw more of. For example, breach of prevention, you see it stand out, followed by the lease renewals and recertifications. As I mentioned, that's very popular. People have to do that on a yearly basis, so they come back and whatever issues they have. And then that's followed by relocation questions and assistance. As I mentioned, there are several projects going on. And rental assistance applications, that was the next one. Here, I know Kristen likes to look at this, is properties. The properties that popped up over the last year. So I made sure I included that for you, Kirsten. So
Thank you.
yes, you see that. Well, you see some properties stick out the most. For example, you see, let me see here. TLC has a huge number, and that's because there were ledger discrepancies that we helped with, and some residents needed intervention and help with that. We definitely did escalate that because it was a large number of residents that were affected by that. So we communicated with upper management, with the regional manager, who got involved and took matters in his own hands to get that fixed for the entire community. There were also a lot of questions about leasing, renewals, recertifications, questions about their rights, and let's see, what's the other note I have on TLCs? Yeah, they were also behind on issuing leases to residents. This came back from like the pandemic. Most places fell behind on renewing leases and getting those to the residents' hands. So that's why that number is kind of high there. Followed by AHC, there's been a lot of eviction prevention, residents coming over asking what they can do for, they may be behind on rent or afraid they won't be able to pay rent. So a lot of that came over to us over the last year. Same with lease renewals and questions about their leases and rights. Let me see who else here. J.R. Lynch, well, you see the high number, and as I mentioned, is the renovation is going on, the redevelopment is going on over there. Paradigm came up with next also with a huge number. That's also people looking to move out or to apply for apartments there or rental assistance. Definitely a lot of recertifications came to us. There's, it was turnover in management, and so new managers, new staff. Sometimes, they implement things differently. So then residents come to us. We have been in that community for a long time, so they know of us. So, they quickly come over to Bogota, either walk into our office or call us. And those are the ones that stand out really here. So let me see. So to mention a few accomplishments of what we did in partnership with CPHD, we helped organize and held the Tenant Summit along with Rolda. Several of you attended. I know David Tim was there, and some county board members also assisted. And then in partnership with Navajo, as you heard from Alice, we conducted a workshop, a community workshop for Arlington 2050. It was tenant focused, well attended, very satisfied. It was a great partnership. And we also organized workshops throughout the year that are relevant to renters. So one popular one is the tenant rights and fair housing, and also eviction prevention. Those are 2 very popular, along with the other ones that are mentioned below. We also organized the 2 workshops on understanding your lease, renting, and maintenance. That's very popular. People, there's a high demand for that one. And we partner also with a Arlington County CPHD. Jorge Laura is a worker there in CPHD that does tenant outreach, educational workshops in the community. Next, we provided counseling and referrals to financial assistance to households at risk of eviction, as I mentioned earlier, and also provided counseling to households with lease violations, as I mentioned, the 2130s. A lot of times there's a lot of confusion. When people receive this notice, it's a legal notice, it's scary. And a lot of people often pick up and just leave their apartments and, turn in their keys without knowing that this one is, you can fix this problem. It's if you got 21 days to remedy it, or you move out in 30s, but you can fix the problem, as opposed to other notices like the 30-day notice or a termination notice. Provided information lease renewals, as I mentioned, recertifications. That's a big one every year. And we also assisted households in resolve the ledger and billing discrepancies. That was a big one this year. As I mentioned, TLC has popped up with a lot of those issues, and as well as a few other properties that we heard from. And some of the areas that we've conducted outreach, we do this on a yearly basis. So you see them pop up, our Highlands, Penrose, Fort Myers, Roslyn, Westover, Shirlington, Arlington Mill, Ashton Heights, Buckingham, Barcroft, so really all over the place in Arlington. And I promised to keep it to an hour, so that's it. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Saul.
We have time for at least one comment.
I have one question.
Yes.
Where do you market your services? So how do people find your organization?
Yeah. So one way, and the biggest, is word of mouth. The organization has existed since 1992, so we've been around in the community. We originated from Buckingham, but we do work now throughout Arlington, doing the tenant outreach and education work. And so a lot of it is word of mouth. 2 is going to events. Doing the tenant summit has brought a lot of clients, and that's the event I mentioned that we do with the CPHD. The other way is, amazingly, our website. People are finding us on the website and calling or emailing us. And then going to events. And just through friends and neighbors, they pass the word of mouth. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kristen, you have.
Oh, Sal, can you email that to Rhoda so we can all get your presentation?
Yeah, definitely. Can do that.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I just think for the future, when we're talking about, it's nice to have a reference back. To
Yes.
say, I forgot about them. That's a problem.
Numbers,
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, thank you.
Happy to share data.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, so.
Yeah. Thank you.
Moving on to our next item, it's the budget highlights. Rhoda, do you turn over the floor to you if there's anything from staff's perspective? All right.
Nothing additional, was I think I had pointed out that there was a work session yesterday. So nothing additional, and you were also there, so I think you would forward some questions, yes. Don't go ahead and put some results out, presentation, stemming from the presentation. And I sent the response from staff to you.
Yeah, and 2 of the major highlights that I noticed, and I'll pass this around. Page 791, code enforcement, they're off. If the open position, they're planning to eliminate it in the budget, and they would increase, I think, from 68% to 68 days to 90 days for code enforcement. So I thought that would be an issue stemming from all the concerns we've heard in the past year.
Yeah.
So I would check that. Yeah, so I thought when we do present a letter formally and provide testimony next week, that we would advocate for that position to be actually included in the budget. Since it's been it's been an ongoing issue in the county. And also to continue supporting that 150,000 for the consultants inspecting the CAFs. Since they've been able to touch, I think, was it 2,000 units every year. That was something that we've learned through Jonathan, which I think is no longer with the county, but also through our subcommittee last year. That was very important. That was money well spent. Those are the two biggest highlights. I mean, there's other highlights such as, which I think is more so for the commission to maybe invite the Office of Human Rights and EEO, since they also cover housing discrimination, which seems to be falls under our purview as well as the Housing Commission. Their presentation was not as forthcoming, and even the county board had more inquiries after the presentation. And I think it's an area of maybe not for our letter, but for a future study later on this year. So those are the two biggest highlights I think we could focus on. But if there's anything else you see from the documents or from your own reads, I'll move forward.
They're exactly what I had flagged. When I
Okay.
So you covered it.
Okay.
I totally agree. You got to talk with Callan. Did he have anything that the housing?
They focused on AHEF and increasing to $20 million and whatnot. I think within the purview of our commission and our charge, I think those were the two that we could advocate on as commissioners of TLC.
He seemed interested in the housing commission talking about the code enforcement items.
They did not focus on code enforcement. They focused on actually, I think it's the first item. It was the community planner role. Yeah, that was the one that they focused on during their testimony yesterday.
Okay. Might be worth just like talking to Callan just to see if, I guess we're probably past this point, but if you get the two commissions to like say the same thing, could be helpful. But I can see that maybe the priorities are different for scope reasons. So I think it's probably fine to just send our own letter on those two.
We're also asking for much less. If they're asking for $1 million extra dollars, I don't want to be that.
Yeah, we're asking for 150,000 for the grounds plus 138,000 for the.
So less than 300.
Yeah.
That's a better approach. If he's.
It does feel strange that they're singling out the code enforcement.
It's such a big dip. The 63 to 90 days is huge.
Yes,
Yeah.
30%.
Increase, especially when we have an example from tonight of how valuable code enforcement.
So I thought those are the two we could focus on. So if you're okay with me and working with David on crafting that letter and providing that testimony on March 20th, then by general consensus, I will do that and we'll move ahead with that. Those are the two items we will advocate.
Yeah, let's vote on it and to be seconded.
So moved that you dropped the letter. Highlighted.
for code enforcement and supporting the housing inspector grant. I think it's the 150,000.
I second.
So was there a threat to not supporting the inspections?
No, but just to protect it, just to advocate for it, because as we all know, as being a lobbyist, if you don't speak for it, it could be on the chopping block. So it's better to speak for it, the importance.
Yeah, like if they were like, okay, well, we'll keep the code enforcement inspector.
Yeah.
Is it roughly?
Yeah.
That would be pretty. One thing I will say is that every time county manager gets to this time of year, he asks for people to provide things that they are willing to cut. Nobody ever comes up with anything, but I figured I would echo that just in case there's something that we see, here that.
I mean, there were other programs such I did see, such as the I guess for parliamentary purposes, I think we did pass the vote,
Yes.
just to close that, just to close that off.
So what is for?
To support code enforcement, to write a letter supporting the code enforcement position and supporting the 150,000 for the housing inspections, the ongoing 150,000 for the housing inspections. There was some other community programs I was reading in this section regarding, there's a community education program that was $40,000, but it said minimal, there was like 34 participants.
Okay.
I thought that but the issue was there was just numbers of people, but there was no traffic data. There's no, like, what's the age range on this? It was civic engagement, but it was like, is it skewing a certain way? As we know from the commission data that the county clerk did back in October, the commission skewed towards a certain end of the demographics. So it's like, is it money well spent, or is that $40,000 cut in paper supplies that you get more return for investment? So there are areas to cut that we could recommend, but I figured as within the scope of TLC, those were the two areas we could add.
I agree. Let's just do the pro.
Yeah. I mean, I could definitely cut. I work on 2 budgets. I'm sure most of the people in this room
We
work
can
on
figure it
budgets as
out,
well.
but.
Yeah.
Actually, we're gonna be the only ones proposing it.
But is that all for the budget discussion? Okay. Before we move on to the subcommittee reports, I did want to close out from public comment to address the letter to Cushman and Wakefield, or there was also an idea for an invitation for them to appear in April.
I sort of think we should do both.
Yeah.
In the letter, invite them to come and give their side. I hate to like send something to the county board or otherwise like take a public action without first having the other side talk about the issues. Is this, did Cushman Wakefield present at a previous, or that was a different?
I think that's WWE. Yeah, there was a representative from
Yeah,
the property management who was online at the time that they had issued.
Yeah, it's just been a while, right? Because when was that?
She was talking about the jobs. I remember her. She said, "Oh, some system that she had to go, had to
Right,
order."
which is the
to-
same problem
Yeah.
that we're aware of, yes.
Yeah, and it was a legacy system, and not all the parts were available.
I don't know
Yeah,
that they tried to source them, but couldn't.
Yeah, she had to buy it on eBay or something. I remember
Yeah,
that.
Real
But I don't
You know?
recall this, like, the people in, like, vacant units issue.
I
No,
just think that
no,
this
no.
is-
And I feel like that's far more dangerous and, you know, I understand, like, supply chain issues or whatever, but,
At that point, you put a real lock on the door.
That's what yeah, exactly.
and I don't,
It's an easy
would it
fix.
be too, like, I'm just thinking out loud, but would it be too difficult to do, like, a vacant room check, like, once a week or something for the management? I don't know. It seems like there's some ways that this could be without bringing in security forces, right?
And how many vacant units are there, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Because, I mean, if
There you go.
isn't a property manager supposed to be walking their building anyway? I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, you say once a week, I'd be like. I mean, how many vacants can there really be?
I would be walking the building twice a day.
Yeah.
Be shutting the door.
And you have, I mean, you have housekeeping staff, porter staff, maintenance staff,
Not with everyone.
painters there.
But
Yeah.
did she say that they were breaking into the apartments or that the management was leaving it unlocked?
Right, there was no lock on it.
For the apartment.
Right.
They're cannibalizing the locking mechanisms, putting them on functional apartments that are occupied, and so the doors are unlocked. So
Of
there's
the actual
There's
apartment.
not even a lock.
I thought it was the building.
Well, there was like two issues, like they're
Yeah.
getting inside the building, right? Like either following somebody in or like grabbing somebody's fob off the ground or.
And that's an impossibility.
No, yeah, you
that's-
can't,
I mean,
but you can certainly monitor the vacant units, like,
100%.
that seems like a very
Yeah.
low.
And you could put security cameras, which they had to go to.
They did
Amazon
do
for.
that at least. The other issue though is the non-responsiveness. I mean, like, it's inexplicable that they're not even trying to get lease renewals.
Yeah, I know.
I've heard that a
I
couple
can't
times.
understand
What is
that.
Is there a reason that buildings don't renew my property managers have always been like, you have to renew your lease.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't renew a lease at Ditmar, your rent goes up $200.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, I don't.
There you go, month to month, yeah.
I have lived in a building where I like proactively be like, hey, like, I am owed my notice from you of what my potential new rent would be. Like,
Yeah.
I've had to proactively reach out.
Is there a reason? Is there a financial?
The only reason I can think of would be if there is about to be a change at the property. Maybe you are considering a restoration renovation and you're behind because you have to give a 120-day notice. So you're not giving out leases because you know, maybe you're waiting for all the cargo ships to get in, you know, with all these supplies. Or there's an impending sale that, I don't want to say it's under the table, but it's, you know, not public.
Right, yeah.
And so they're waiting. So, I mean, those are the only logical reasons you would wait. I mean, as a landlord, you want to know if you have to rent the apartment or not.
Right. I think there's
Yeah.
more
And,
incentive on your end.
some people are probably
99% of the time your rent is going up when you do a renewal, right? So you think that the landlord would want more money. So it's got to be something else.
Yeah, yeah, it
The
seems like some
undercost
systemic
is
issue.
just, like, having dealt with that is the most infuriating part.
Oh, yeah, I can't imagine.
Like, and then the blocking.
The blocking.
I've been blocked on my internal app before.
Really?
Like, yeah. So like, it's very frustrating, and you're restricted, like, the very little power that you
I guess the question we can direct Rhoda is, Rhoda, if you can request, or request for more information, say that we've heard these concerns raised at this meeting, and also back in July. Seems like they haven't been resolved.
and in fact have gotten worse.
Yeah,
I would
and there's been a progression and they got worse. And therefore, if they can provide a response and also be present at our upcoming meeting to address any of these concerns that seem alarming to us.
Yeah. So I think it's the three things, right? It's the the security issues, it's retaliation issues, and the non-responsiveness. Whether that's a staffing issue or what, I don't know. If it's possible, I think we should send it not just to Cushing and Wakefield, but also to the Washington.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when they took over the building or bought the building or whatever, it was like a really big deal as part of the Amazon initiative. And there were a lot of early positive signs, in my opinion. This is back in 2020 or 21. So it's really frustrating to see like a really positive thing turn negative like this.
So is there going to be a letter drafted?
I think let's
Should we draft the letter?
let's draft an initial letter, just based on some of the information that we've gotten, and then request their presence at the next upcoming
So
meeting.
we'll draft a letter for you, Rhoda, and then you can send it. But
I'd like to.
We can distribute it to the commissioners before we send it.
so I guess we'll take a vote on it. So we'll authorize ourselves to draft the letter and then have you all review it in advance. And then we'll have Rhoda send it to the Washington Conservancy, who's the owner of the property, as well as the manager of the property, which seems to be Cushman, regarding these concerns, requesting their to respond to these concerns, but also appear at the next upcoming meeting in April or May at their earliest convenience.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Unanimously.
Yes.
You didn't ask for nays.
Well,
No.
You're supposed to ask for the nays, but is there a nay?
I think you've been doing a great job, Ryan.
Okay, so I'll keep the subcommittee report short. Thank you all for your comments. We're meeting on Tuesday. We have a working draft. Thank you, Nature, for all your appendix edits. I added them all in. And thank you all for your comments. They're all on the right rail. Feel free to check them out and comment. I think there's one or two outstanding comments regarding one or two clauses. and then we'll address them. And then I think Saul will be back with his one pager that he provided. So we'll address that for like another 15, 20 minutes or so, and then we'll deep dive back into those clauses. And hopefully we'll be done with the relocation guidelines and be able to pivot to the chart. But that is all I have in the subject.
And we're meeting here next Tuesday.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Tuesday next, I think it's in Sherry, right? Or I don't know. Where
Somewhere in this building.
Yeah, somewhere in this building.
I'll get a meeting note.
Yeah.
Have the date, meeting.
Yeah, sounds good.
You should really find out on the record where the meeting's gonna be.
Stay tuned for more updates. But turn the floor on to Rhoda for any staff updates.
Yeah, just a couple of, I don't know if it's announcements you call them, I guess. As you might have recalled, we had sent out some announcements about various positions, inviting commissioners to, participate in other events or activities, and we did get good response. Nature is now a member of the SITSAC committee. She's appointed at the last meeting. And then Sarah has joined the Affordable Housing Ordinance Task Force. And John is on the, John is on the Civic Engagement Task Force. Both of those are subcommittees of the Housing Commission. And actually, they had their first meeting tonight. You had a call.
Yeah, I'll review the meeting online on the video format, and I think what they're doing is they're adjusting it for next month. It'll be on the Wednesday. No, today's Wednesday, so the next day.
Second Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah, so there's old movement, so I can attend.
To the extent that any of you have reports or like notable things,
Yeah.
just let us know at least more than a week in advance, and we'll put it on the agenda specifically.
So that, yeah, that's what I had to just.
I guess on that regard, we did a walkthrough from the planning commission regarding the Walgreens site.
Oh, okay.
That was 2 Fridays ago now. It was very cold that day. That site plan is moving along. I believe they're tentatively planning a date in April to hold the first meeting of that subcommittee to move along with that plan. It's supposed to be a 12-story building along Kirkwood and Langston Boulevard. I was about to say Lee Highway, but I'm like, that's not appropriate anymore. But that's it. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, is there a motion? Okay, motion moved and seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? The ayes have it. You're concurrent.
Very nicely done.
Yeah.
And only 5 minutes.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep the trains moving.